Okay, so I'm on the PTR looking at Augmentation, the new spec for Invoker, the third spec that will be coming. Um, the PTR that I'm currently on is for patch 10.1.5. So I need to reset the talent, so I figured I would just go ahead and go over them as I'm picking them so we can discover them together. Before I do that, though, I will show you what augmentation starts with. So, close as clutchmates, Ebon Might and Breath of Ions are 30% more effective when not in a raid, which is kind of interesting that it's specifically mentions not in a raid, as most of our buffs do interact with either party or raid members. Mastery is Time Walker. Casting an empowered spell grant Shifting Sands to 2 allies preferring damage dealers. I thought that was interesting when I was kind of skimming through these. Increasing their versatility by 8.3% for 10.8 seconds. The duration of Shifting Sands, Breath of Ions, and your other helpful auras are increased by 7.6%. Nourishing Sand, when you kill an enemy that yields experience or honor, the cooldown of your Emerald Blossom is refreshed, and your Emerald Blossom within 21.5 seconds restores an additional 20% of your maximum health to you. And then finally, Sands of Time. Eruption increases the duration of your active Ebon Might effects by 1 second. Your empowered spells increase the duration of your active Ebon Might effects by 3 seconds. Deep Breath increases the duration of your active Ebon Might effects by 5 seconds. This effect can critically strike, increasing the duration of Ebon Might by an additional 50%. So, those are the 4 that augmentation starts with. As far as the rest of the Invoker abilities, it seems pretty much the same, more or less, from what I can tell. I did go ahead, for the sake of time, and fill in the Invoker talents as they are for Devastation. So, Augmentation Talents. Ebon Might increases your 4 nearest allies' primary stat by 14%, of your own 833, and cause your eruption to deal 28% more damage for 10.8 seconds. May only affect 4 allies at once, and prefers to imbue, that's an interesting word to use, damage dealers. Eruption, Deep Breath, and your empowered spells extend the duration of these effects. Which this is interesting, because what little I have played of Invoker seems like things could have used a bit of buff. So I wonder if this was intentional, or maybe they just hadn't completely fleshed this out yet. So Eruption replaces Disintegrate. Cause a violent eruption beneath an enemy's feet, dealing volcanic damage split between them and nearby enemies. Increases the duration of your active Ebon Might effects by 1 second. Okay, and then this is just Essence Burst, so we're familiar with that. So this is looking like the left side is going to be different. I'm taking it. Maybe. Okay, so those are pretty standard. Eruption deals 30% more damage per enemy struck up to 150%. Okay. Eruption deals 30% more damage per enemy struck up to 150%. Split between them and nearby. Oh, okay, I see. It's weird picking talent for abilities you haven't actually seen. Essence Burst sex up 2 times. Yes. When cast at an enemy, living flame strikes one additional target. Has a 10% chance to target to hit to echo. Casting again. I'm gonna move that. Upheaval. Gather earthen power beneath your enemy's feet and send them hurling upwards, dealing volcanic damage to the target and nearby enemies. Increases the duration of your active Ebon Might effects by 3 seconds. Empowering extends the area of effect. Interesting. Okay, I kind of like that. Sounds fun, if nothing else. Breath of Eons replaces Deep Breath, which is... okay. Fly to the targeted location, exposing temporal wounds on enemies in your path for 10.8 seconds. Temporal wounds accumulate 21% of damage dealt by your allies affected by Ebon Might, then critical strike for that amount as arcane damage. It's kind of interesting they would consider that arcane damage. I don't know what the bronze dragons consider themselves as far as like the power structure in WoW is concerned. Because Alexstrasza would be fire, Ysera would be nature, Azura, the blue Dragonflight would be frost. Yeah, but I'm not sure what the bronze actually considers. I don't know that they've ever said. I'm like running like Cataclysm dungeons and raids through my mind, and I'm thinking I don't think they've ever really said. Regardless, applies Ebon Might for 5 seconds, removes all root effects. You are not immune to movement pairing. And loss of control effect while flying. So, of course, that would be the same as like a whirlwind, so that makes sense. Defy fate. Fatal attacks are divided into a diverted, into a nearby timeline, preventing the damage and your death in this one. The release of temporal energy restores a massive amount of health to you and to 4 nearby allies over 9 seconds. Healing starts high and declines over the duration. May only occur once every 6 minutes. So almost 100,000 health. About 1/3 of that to 4 allies. I mean, that's not bad on a 6-minute cooldown. I think... I know Purgatory is like 10 minutes. I think... I'm trying to remember what Cheat Death is. Cheat Death and... what is the Shaman version of Cheat Death? I want to say like Ancestral Guardian, something like that. I want to say it's 10 minutes too. I'm almost thinking Cheat Death is 10 minutes. So, value-wise, like 6 minutes, depending on what you're doing. Like, you could use this several times in Mythic Plus. Certainly in a raid. Not so much in PvP. Definitely would be off cooldown before the next match in PvP if you were doing, like, raided. Timelessness. Enchant an ally to appear out of sync with the normal flow of time, reducing threat they generate by 30% for 32.3 minutes. Less effective on tank specialization allies. Makes sense. May only be placed on one target at a time. Landslide causes enemies who are mid-air to slam to the ground, sending them for 2 seconds. Interesting. Okay. Eruption's essence cost is reduced by 1. What is it? 3. 3 is expensive, so that we can take. Breath of Eons reduces enemies' movement speed by 70% and reduces their attack speed by 50% for 10.8 seconds. Breath of Eons grants allies a shield for 100% of the damage dealt. That I would almost think is better. Movement speed and reduces their attack speed is good. I feel like being able to shield your allies would be better. As someone who's healed Mythic Plus to the point of getting that season's mount, I would say this is better. While flying, deep breath. During deep breath, 50% of damage you would take is instead dealt over 10 seconds. Azura Strike reduces the remaining cooldown of Landslide by 1 second per target hit. Bestow Wernstone? Conjure a pair of werestones. One for your target ally and one for yourself. Only one ally may bear your werestone. At a time, a werestone can be activated by the bearer to teleport them to the other werestone's location if they are within 100 yards. Okay, I can see people getting mischievous with this. 100 yards is a pretty good distance um, in an instance, though. Like that's going to be like a fraction of a floor or room, depending on the dungeon or instance. That is interesting. That has really weird. So I wonder if, say, like Whirlsong Gulch, surely from one base to the other would be more than 100 yards. It's got to be, because mid would be, most spells are about 40 yards. And I'm guessing mid of Whirlsong Gulch is at least more than 80. Give or take. So, yeah. Even still, though, you could still get more than halfway across the map in one button's time. I'll be interested to see how this works. Not necessarily sure what all I'm going to do, or I might grab that. Blistering Scales. Protect an ally with 15 explosive dragon scales, increasing their armor by 30%. Of your own, melee attacks against the target cause one scale to explode, dealing volcanic damage to enemies near them. This damage can only occur every few seconds. Bolstering scales can only be placed on one target at a time. Cast on your enemy's target if they have one. Interesting. Learn to attune yourself to the essence of the black or bronze dragonflights. Black Atonement. You and your 4 nearest allies have 5% increased maximum health. Bronze Attunement. You and your 4 nearest allies have 10% increased movement speed. Interesting. So, how do you tone yourself exactly? Don't think spiraling paradox is new. Okay. Upheaval cannot be interrupted. It has an additional 10%. chance to critically strike. Upheaval deals 50% increased damage to the primary target and launches them higher. Well, I would say that would be better, right? I mean, depending on what the critical strike is. Additional 10% chance to critical strike. Deals 50% increased damage. So this would be more constant. Bolstering scales has 5 more scales, and casting eruption restores 1 scale. Molten blood, which may be one of the best named talents I have seen so far. When cast, bolstering scales grants the target a shield that absorbs up to 112,519 damage for 32.3 seconds based on their missing health. Lower health targets gain a larger shield. Interesting. Increases your essence to 6. Yes. Obsidian Scales activates Black Atonement. Okay. Okay, so it kind of goes by what you use. That makes sense. Kind of. Obsidian Scales activates Black Atonement and amplifies it to increase maximum health by 12.45% for 12.9 seconds. Hover activates Bronze Atonement and amplifies it to increase movement speed by 25% for 4.3 seconds. Okay. I thought... Wasn't there... Yeah, Time Spiral. Allowing your allies 40 yards to cast their major movement ability. No. I thought there... Yeah, there we go. Cypher. You and your allies are reducing damage, area of effects. No, maybe not. I thought there was something that none of my key bindings are set up here. This is becoming very annoying. I thought there was something you could take that would allow your group, your allies, to hover as well and cast their abilities and be able to move. Maybe that was just a devastation talent. So yeah, no, we'll go with that. Deep breath cooldown is reduced by 10 seconds. I don't ever really use it that often. Start damage. I have to spend one more. I'll take stretch time, why not? Each time bolstering scales explodes, Deals 10% more damage for 12.9 seconds. Stacking 10 times. Essence Burst has a 20% chance not to be consumed. Yes. Essence Burst reduces the cooldown of Eruption by 30%. Yes. Grant an ally the gift of Foresight. Increasing their critical strike chance by 3% for 21.5 seconds. Affects the nearest ally within 25 yards, preferring damage dealers. Again, with the specifically sectioning out damage dealers. If you do not have an ally targeted. That's interesting. I wonder if that's because preservation has been somewhat overpowered. Or if that's just because they're trying to balance more the damage side and not so much the healing side. Since this is supposed to be like a I think this is going to be, I think they're trying to do like a wannabe pseudo kind of tinker bard class kind of thing where you just kind of buff your allies. Your effects that extend Ebon might also extend. What is Emerald Blossom increases target's healing received by 3%. Okay, so I didn't take that, so I don't need to worry about it. Okay. Consuming Essence Burst grants you 5% intellect for 8 seconds, stacking up to that. Yes. Fire Breath grants the Inferno's Blessing for 8.6 seconds to you and your allies affected by Ebon Might, giving their damage, attacks, and spells a high chance to deal an additional 5,500 fire damage. Time skip, surge forward in time, causing your spells to cool down 1000% faster for 2 seconds. Eruption reduces the remaining cooldown of upheaval by 1 second. I mean, it's a 30-second spell. And finally, the end of the talent tree for augmentation. Essence abilities have a chance to form a moat of diverted time near you. Anyone who continues in contact with the moat gains 10 seconds of reducted cooldown to their major abilities. So this sounds like a light well, unless I'm not understanding it completely correctly. But I'm going to take it out of vague curiosity. Fire breath grants the Inferno's fire breath is the okay. Blessing. Sure. Your empowered spells maximum level is increased by 1, and their reach maximum empower level 25% faster. Okay. Time skip. Don't know how exactly helpful that is. Tomorrow, today, time skip channels 1 second longer. Interwoven threads replaces time skip. The cooldown of your spells are reduced by 15%. The cooldown of your spells is reduced 15%. That I like. Let's take that. And it makes it a passive, which I also like. So it's kind of a double. Yeah. Yeah, that I like. That's how talent should work. Just go down to upheaval. Deep breath, cast, and eruption at the first 3 enemies struck. Chance to grant you essence burst. Grants an ally a chance for their spells and abilities to echo their damage or healing. Dealing 50% of the amount again. I kind of like this. So, yeah, so there we go. Okay, so I have everything set up now. So that is our living flame. That is actually, let's go over here because I think some of these trigger to, well, I don't know which one's lower. Actually, I think these guys are lower down here. We'll go join everybody else. Okay. So there's open flame. Might. Okay, so this seems like it's more of a kind of a actual traditional kind of spellcaster kind of buff. If you were thinking like BC Burning Crusade, Paladin, Shaman, kind of class where you buff, I would say, I think it's kind of some of that more fleshed out, more streamlined. So you're actually not just spending all your time buffing, you're actually doing something else. I also did find out that the Atonement actually turns into like a stance. So you have Black Atonement, which increases maximum health. And then you have Bronze Atonement, which increases movement speed. So then I assume what would be there we go. So Obsidian Scales triggers the health, and then Hover triggers the. See, it's really throwing me that this is it. So I just launched myself into the wall. So that didn't really seem to affect anything. So. Where do I have Obsidian Scales? There we go. Well, it does say bronze. It's no, because I don't have. Yeah. Okay. So, does this do anything particularly different now? I thought I did something. Did it do something different? Maybe not. Hold on here. Did I or didn't I? Stunning the. Okay, I did not. I did not take Systematic Slam. Okay, that's fine. Definitely, as with the other two specs, potential for PvP. So yeah, that's blood, leaping flame. Bolstering scales. Interesting. Okay. Okay, well there you go, folks. There was a bit of a preview of the new augmentation spec for Invoker. More of a independent spec, I would say. It's not so much a hybrid of other classes. It seems like, as I said, maybe this was kind of the thought from the beginning, and maybe they just weren't done or hadn't fleshed it out, or were trying to wait until a little bit into the game. I think it's probably a good point in the game since there's some raids out already. People have geared. We don't have to figure out gearing and raids and everything else, and then try to figure out how this affects everything else. We're kind of settled with our gear now. It's just upgrading our gear as the expansion goes on. So yeah, so I'll actually be excited to play this. I wasn't sure when I found out it was a DPS spec. When there were rumors, I thought surely it would be like a tank spec, or maybe there was a far chance it might be a second healing spec. So priests weren't the only ones with two healing specs. This works though. This is kind of different. So this will break up the monotony. As I said, when I've played around, not so much with preservation, but with devastation, it seems like it could use a bit of a buff. So hopefully when you're in a group with more than one invoker, this kind of breaks up the monotony, kind of adds a little something extra so everybody's not just using the exact same spells, um, on every pull in every Mythic Plus or raid that you're doing. So, yeah. So, there you go. Hope you enjoyed that. Hope that was helpful for you. Again, this was the PTR build for patch 10.1.5. So, not entirely sure if that's when it's coming out or if it's going to be like a 10.2 thing, and they're just putting it in now to kind of work out the kinks. But currently, that is where we stand. It was just recently added. Um, Within the last week or so, I started seeing things and I got curious. So I was actually going to log on to beta and actually saw the PTR pop up there. So, yeah. So there you go. Hope you enjoyed that, and thank you for watching.